dated yet. Peace and welcome to The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in this afternoon. Folks, we got some great conversations lined up for you. First and foremost, let's talk about when censorship is on the ballot. I'm going to share with you what states are doing to try to restrict a number of efforts, from everything from learning about history to free speech, and how voters are going to affect this new level of governance as we're talking about speaking our mind and protecting the freedom of speech. We'll have that conversation. Also, the Queen, her body has now arrived in London, in where she will be lying in state from Wednesday to Friday of this week before her funeral on Monday. We bring in historian and educator Michael N. Hotep to talk to us about the Queen's relationship as it comes to Black history, and asking those very, very hard questions about whether she was a racist and all of those things, so we get some understanding. Also, can we talk about the Little Mermaid controversy and how Halle Bailey is now being just catapulted into a whole new space because of this? But this is my question about this. Should we really get excited? Should we get excited that in this live action, there will be a Black Ariel? We'll have that conversation and a whole lot more. So stay with us, folks. It's all happening on today's edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Let's go. Welcome to The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Folks, we got a lot to talk about today. Oh my goodness. I'm really, really excited. We got our dynamic culture crew, you know who I'm talking about. Lise Winnie, host of Millennials Anonymous podcast. We got Iman Heath, who is an entrepreneur and activist that's going to be joining us in a few moments. And of course, I got you, my online culture crew. The folks that I enjoy hearing from each and every day we are on air. So folks, get ready to join us in these discussions, because we got some good ones. We got a lot of conversation about a whole lot of cultural topics. And so I'm very, very excited about it. Now, this is a huge day for Black Star Network, because not just because we're doing the great work of putting the word out about Black media and expanding the brand and all of that good stuff. Did you know that Roland Martin, right, the founder, the curator of Black Star Network, did you know he was an author now? No, he's been an author, folks. And guess what? He's dropped in his new book, White Fear. Oh my gosh. It drops today. He was able to, check this out. There it is. White Fear, folks. You can now purchase this book. It is, it's going to open up some hearts. It's going to open up some minds. He said it this morning on his live. He said that it's a book that everybody needs to read, Black people, Latino folks, and of course, white people. But this is an analysis. This is not just his ruminations. This is an analysis of where we are in this country when it comes to race issues, and more importantly, how we should go about dealing with these issues, from MAGA Republicans to folks who are just dissatisfied and disgruntled about the state of affairs in America. So when we look at the issue of racism, when we look at the issue of domestic terrorism and all of those things, we have to look at white fear. And I'm not just talking about those who are in the hillsides and the mountains of West Virginia. I'm talking about those who are in urban spaces, in major cities, from Los Angeles to New York to Baltimore to Miami. There is an underlying fear right now. There's a fear of all that we are seeing, that something is being taken. And so, you know, if you haven't had a chance to pre-order the book, or even take a look at the book, or you want to know what Brother Roland Martin has to say about this, make sure you pick up a copy of White Fear, because it is available now. And it's more importantly, so we can have some very, very, I would say, some new insights, some better analysis about the situation that we find in this country. So, Keenan, let's put that back up there once again, folks. White Fear. Make sure y'all check it out. It's available where books are sold in all of those spaces and platforms. Make sure y'all pick up your copy today. All right, folks. Speaking of fear, there's a great fear right now in this country about freedom of speech in many states. Not even the federal government, not even the Supreme Court, but state governments are now looking into changing the laws when it comes to everything from which books are going to be discussed in schools, what can teachers say, conversations that we can have publicly versus those we have in privately, and a whole lot more. So New York Times put out this piece, this op-ed about the issue of censorship being the refuge of the weak. And this is a very, very interesting op-ed. And I want to share with you a little bit about this as we have this conversation about why censorship is maybe on the ballot. I truly believe it is. Take a look at this, folks. According to this article, it talks about censorship saying this, quote, acts of censorship are often tacit admissions of weakness. Tacit admissions masquerading as strength. This weakness is on full display with the imposition of so-called educational gag orders, laws which restrict the discussions of race, gender, sexuality, and American history in K through 12 and higher education. A political project convinced of the superiority of its ideas doesn't need the power of the state to shield people from competing ideas. Censorship is the desperate rear guard action of a movement that has already lost the fight for hearts and minds. This year alone, take a look, check this out, folks. This year alone, 137 gag order bills like these have been introduced in 36 state legislatures. That's a sharp increase from 2021, when 54 bills were introduced in 22 states, according to a report released last month by PEN America, which is a free speech organization. Only 7 of those bills became law in 2022, but they are some of the strictest to date, and the sheer number of bills introduced reflects a growing enthusiasm on the right for censorship as a political weapon and instrument of social control. Speaks volumes about where we are. I want to bring in our culture crew, Lise, Winnie, Iman, Heath on this. We want to talk a little bit more about what this article had to say, but to look at where we are right now. Lise and Iman, good afternoon. Good to see you, sisters, here with me today. As always, I enjoy our Tuesday discussions.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Absolutely. You all good, Iman?
Yes, I'm off mute.
That's all good. But when we talk about censorship, and this article, in this piece, it talks about this. Weakness is on full display. When you have educational gag orders, when we have laws which restrict the discussion of very important things, race, gender, sexuality, American history in schools. I can remember, Lise, that when I was in schools, you know, we used to have everything like sex ed class, right? I mean, we didn't think nothing of it other than the fact that it was important. We needed to know that. I think I had that in like middle school, you know what I mean? Because you start to know your body, starting to have all these feelings. It was a good time to learn that. Now that might be on a chopping block in some states. We're talking about, when we talk about race issues, you can't read certain books. You know, we already know about that long situation. But the biggest thing out of this is the number of bills, these gag order bills, 137 being introduced in 36 states, whereas just a year ago, just 1 year ago in 2021, we were looking at 54 bills in 22 states. What is going on? Lisa, I'm gonna start with you. Yeah.
I think we're in a place where censorship is, it's not just the right. I think the right has really taken this more to a legal perspective, making things happen. The right is a little bit better at that, being able to actually get stuff done, which I think that Democrats probably need to see a little bit of what they're doing in order to actually start to implement policies and get stuff done. But we've seen censorship on the left and on the right. And I think that we are going down a very narrow hallway of we only want what we believe to be seen or heard, which is problematic. And I think that when we're seeing that they're taking books out of schools and they want to, you know, limit sex ed, and they don't want children to learn that there's people that have same-sex parents, and we're trying to shield and create a world that doesn't exist. And again, I agree with the op-ed that this is a sign of weakness when you show that you are afraid to hear other viewpoints from around the world or around just in your neighborhood or community. It does show a level of fear and weakness. And so I think that this is their way of trying to control the ever-changing world that they cannot control. But I will say that this is a problem on both sides of the spectrum, and we have to have that conversation one day.
We got to have it, Iman. Check this out. Let me just give you folks some examples. A student newspaper and journalism program in Nebraska was shut down because they talked about Pride Month. In the state of Oklahoma, they're seeking to revoke the teaching certificate of an English teacher who shared a QR code that directed students to the Brooklyn Public Library's online collection of banned books. A newly elected district attorney in Tennessee is thinking about jailing teachers and librarians. In Florida, it may be even illegal for teachers to even talk about who they love or marry thanks to the state's Don't Say Gay law. I mean, and then also in Florida, they say the Republican commissioner of education rejected 28 different math textbooks this year for including verboten content. 28 math textbooks. What the hell? Like I thought this country was the space where we always talk about bring your huddled masses and just come through and be yourself. But this just doesn't sound like this is an encouragement of people to be themselves. And more importantly, this is a situation, Iman, where I feel like the genie has already been out the bottle. People are already living their authentic truth at this point, right? We're already talking about, and I'm saying among the constituents, among the citizens, there's a huge disconnect. There's a problem I see happening between the political leadership and the people in this day and time. What's your take?
It's all about control. It's all about control. Like Lee said, just want to be able to paint or have their own narrative of what this pretty fluffy world that we live in. I can understand that maybe not wanting children to see, or learn about sexual type of things. However, you want to ban abortions, but don't want to educate the children on how you get pregnant, what happens when you're pregnant, the process of your hormones, whatever the case may be. I know I learned sex ed in 6th grade. Like you said, Farajii, I didn't think anything other than, okay, that's what happens. Then in high school, they show you how the baby is born. It was disgusting. That's probably why I don't have no kids right now. But you can't be so controlling to the point where you may not think your citizens will rebel. I think this could be something that could bring citizens together rather than dividing us, because we now live in a world where you have transgender men and transgender women. Like Lee said, you have people who have same-sex parents. So just to shield children from that type of education, I'm not saying, hey, let's tell them wave your rainbow flags up and down the street. I'm not saying let's just parade about it. However, it's here. It exists. And it's okay for people to be who they are, how they are. It shouldn't be any limits to what you can learn. Then to now turn the word slavery into now we were indentured servants, that's not accurate. Where's the integrity about what really happened? But America, politicians want to paint this picture of America being this peachy perfect place that it never was at all.
I agree with Iman on that, and I think that we're going down a really dangerous slope when we start changing history, because like I said, we do this on both sides, where we want history to be what we want it to be, and that's not what it is. And a lot of Republicans feel that if you know the true history of this country, you will have people that don't like this country. But the only way that you can fix this country is to know what happened. So when you're starting, it's not even just changing the terminology, which is incorrect. It's also changing what they're telling them. So they're telling them that only this amount of people actually came from the transatlantic slave trade. The rest of them were born here, but like somehow that makes it better that we were born, our ancestors were born into slavery. Like, we can't do that where we're trying to minimize what actually happened in this country, and we're creating people that don't know their history. They don't know how stuff works, and this does not benefit them down the road. And I think we're going down a really slippery slope.
I mean, it's a very slippery slope to me, Lisa and Iman, because you know, I'm wondering, where are the boundaries? If we start to try to, you know, massage history, we start banning and, you know, just trying to censor all of these different things, then let's take this up to the present day. Let's talk about generally the first group of people whose expression, whose culture is on the chopping block are Black folks, right? So what boundary or what protection do we have on who we are, right? Like, and I'm saying this may not be in every state, but it might be something real crazy where you say, you know what, we think hip hop music is demonic. So any person playing hip hop music in public is going to be, you know, fined, or they're going to be prosecuted. You know what I'm saying? It could be something like that, where just simple expression, oh, if you wear a certain type of clothing, it's going to be illegal. I'm trying to figure, because I mean, some people might say, well, damn, that's kind of going too far, but it's already going too far. So I don't know, Iman,
why we're going backwards. Like, it doesn't make sense. Like, especially with the whole LGBTQ community, like, it has now gotten to a point where there's certain things you can and cannot say, even on Facebook, when it's in pertaining to that community. And I know it's more than just about them, but we've come so far in accepting or making it acceptable representation. So it's like, why now at this point you want to go back to acting as though none of this stuff exists?
Absolutely.
Why now are we retracting the steps? Because I think the growth is great. I think it's good. Everyone should feel included. But why are we going backwards? That's my question. Why are we going backwards?
And I think it's because of fear. It's just people, because again, we're in a space in this country, and Lisa, you tell me if you're seeing the same thing. I feel like we're in some uncharted territory. Like the founders, the architects of this form of government, you know, when we talk about the founders who created the Constitution, they did not foresee, I think they foresaw some things, but I don't think they foresaw this explosion of growth, of diversity, of Black and brown in this country, this evolving culture that we're all a part of, this level of new consciousness where we're like, no, we're pushing off of, you know, structural religious expression, and now we're more gravitating toward being spiritual. I mean, there are some fundamental transformative changes that are happening to people and institutions in this country. And this is uncharted. This is unheard of. And I think that part of it is, Lise, that a lot of white men in particular don't know how to handle the change. They're not used to this. They're used to having control. They're used to dictating the agenda. And now at this point, they're like, well, I'm losing control. What the hell is the agenda? I got to think about people outside of myself in a very different way. And if I don't think about people outside of myself, these folks are knowledgeable and conscious now that they may rise up against me.
I don't think it's new. I don't think we're in uncharted territory. I think this has always been a fear of the founding fathers and of the majority of white people, especially when you're talking about in the past. This has always been it's always been there. When you look at the films that they created and the stereotypes that were out there, like, it's always been here. It's not anything new. I think now we just have they have a different way of controlling it. Whereas I don't want you to read this book or to learn this. So back in our day, we just learned what we had. Like, if it was a math book and the math book worked, you learned what was in the math book no matter what, because you had that curriculum to do. Now it doesn't matter whether or not it's a good math book. If it says something in it about an LGBTQ, or if it says something about slavery in it, they want to automatically pull the book, especially in places like Texas and Florida. And so I think that we do need to be very, very careful with this and where we're going. But I don't think that it's new. And change, I'm going to take it a step further. It's not just white men. Change is hard for everyone. But when you are the position of power, You don't want to see that go away. And we're seeing a boom in the Latino community. There's a lot more Latinos. There's actually more of them than there are of us.
Right.
And so I think when they're seeing that, that's scary because they automatically think that all Latino people think the same. All Black people think the same. And they're not going to want to believe in what we believe in, which is actually not even true, especially when you look at the Latin community. A lot of them actually are leaning towards the conservative. So I don't think that this is, when we're looking at this is about power. So I agree with you completely. They are afraid of losing control. And so when you're losing control, you start to make people less educated. When people don't have education or knowledge, or better yet, choice, options, when you don't have options of choices, you're going to go with what you are told. And that is how you control people.
Or real quick, Lise, if you don't have options of control or choices, you are going to fight back. You're going to fight with your life because you feel like you're backed into a corner, right? So the only way to is like do or die situation. And that's what people are. And I feel like that's the place that a lot of people are in. Like the government's got my back against the wall. You know, culture's got my back against the wall. So guess what? I'm going to fight it. But this might be a situation where it's it's a futile effort just because so many people, it's happening, folks. America is changing. All right, let's go to some of our online culture crew folks who checked in and having some great conversations on our YouTube page and our Facebook page. Mike V, you kicking us off this afternoon, sir. You said, look, it's only a matter of time before one of these Anglo nationalists now add Roland Martin's new thriller, White Fear, to the ban list for teaching CRT and making white folks uncomfortable. Yeah, that ban list is going to be a list of honor and prestige now.
Oh, you want to get information? Oh, that's what's up.
Right.
But aren't they banning?
Oh, your book banned. Yo, that's crazy. My book got banned too. Like, but I don't know if that works well for the publishers. They're looking at trying to get mass appeal.
Yes.
They probably be like, the book is banned too. Oh.
Now we're just gonna have all these fluffy pieces that make people feel good, and it's like you can't shake reality. You can't shake the facts. Like it is what it is, and like y'all said, it's just control and it's fear, especially these older white men. Like you gotta get over it. Like the younger generation, they're not having it. They're not having it.
Right. Shalinda, you said I don't think it's about fear. It's all about power and money, power to control the narrative, and so many parents now putting their children at the evangelicals' private schools is making money. Shalinda, I think, okay, I can see that. I definitely can see that. There is a movement, a quote unquote, a conservative movement that is actually very lucrative in this country. That's making some headway. So yeah, I can definitely see that. Willie Frazier,
but they already have the money. I think she's going to something. They already have the money. What they don't want is for us to get in those positions of power. When you are not in those positions of power, you do lose the money. So of course, this is always about the money. Yeah,
absolutely. You know, the New York Times did this piece, guys. If y'all didn't read this, and for your political wonks out there, I'm sure y'all will appreciate this. New York Times did this piece and they were asking the question, like, where did the candidacy of Donald Trump come from, right? Like, who was the first to be that brash? And they looked at Pat Buchanan. If y'all don't remember the Pat Buchanan on the Republican side, he had some wild ideas. But the thing about him versus Donald Trump, like he worked within the systems, right? He understood how Reagan thought. He worked with George Bush, W. Bush, Daddy Bush, and all of these very high level Republicans. And then he saw that there was a place for a conservative movement, a more far right movement, right? And it really kicked off when he thought that Ronald Reagan, here's what it is. He was dissatisfied because Reagan is considered to be the father of modern conservatism. But Reagan started moving a little bit to the center after a while, because he didn't want to keep getting the blowback of having crazy ass policies. So Pat Buchanan was like, let me play on that. He invited the militias. He even had, taken a lot of his agenda when he was running for president back in the early 90s. He was taking a lot of his talking points from the KKK, like David Duke and some other KKK members at the time who were known to be a part of the KKK. And it was no secret. And so when we're talking about conservatives, when we're talking about money, there is a place for that. There are people who are willing to espouse those ideas to make it money. Donald Trump, he's not new in terms of taking the bad stuff and making money off of it for his personal gain and his political gain. Look how he just did with the FBI search of his place. He raised money off of that. They came into my place. He presented himself as the victim. This is, guys, this is not like, oh, he just woke up and he's, you know, we can kind of diminish him. We can kind of downplay him. But the reality is there are people, and there are certainly moments in political history over these past 30 years in this country where you can see that there's always a space for the dissatisfied. And I'm talking about on both sides. And that people will support the highly dissatisfied, even in our community, when folks don't think you black enough. Their dissatisfaction comes, oh, you start talking about the Latinos, talking about the plight of the Latino. You're going to always find a group of people that's going to be dissatisfied. And to your point, Lise, that's where it is. There is money in those spaces. All right, let's take a couple of more comments from our culture crew. Lana, you said, I just posted this on my Facebook yesterday. I am done apologizing for being black. That's our problem. We scared to be us. You think that's a problem, ladies? Y'all think that's a problem?
Being apologizing for being black.
For our blackness. Yeah.
I don't think it is a problem necessarily now, but I was saying this on Millennials Anonymous. I think that one thing that a lot of people don't understand, that you can always be unapologetically you. You can always be unapologetically you. I can't speak. But the issue is it comes at a cost. And I don't know if a lot of people understand that. Like, when you say whatever it is that you want, you may lose friends, connections, networks. If you are okay with that, then be unapologetically you. But I don't think a lot of people are willing to make that sacrifice. And I think that's where the problem comes in. We've never not been able to really do that in modern times. So I don't know if it's an issue now. I think now it's more, people are making money off of that. Like, when we're being real, people are making money off of that now. So I don't think that it's as much of an issue now as it was in the past.
Let me just, and I think that we have to be very mindful and really, I would say, very cognizant of how we describe and express blackness. Because now to be black is like, people think you just wearing a t-shirt with our ancestors' name on it, right? You wear your hair a certain way. You use the language a certain way. Man, blackness is so much deeper. It starts with how you think, right? Black, you know what I mean?
That's number one. Black is not a choice. When you're born and you're black, you're black. Like, there's no trans.
But you don't come into a consciousness of your blackness when you're born until somebody teaches you.
I think blackness is individual. I think that's the problem. Like, I'm not black because I like this, or somebody likes, I don't like country music, but like, if you like country music, it doesn't make you not black or less black. First of all, country comes from blues. Black people created all that too. But I'm just saying that it doesn't make you less black. I think that's the issue, that we quantify blackness and stereotypes and not even realizing that we're using the stereotypes that they gave us to quantify blackness, and then we're saying that's blackness. No, it's not. We're not a monolith, and we should never be. Blackness is loving who you are, loving black people, and embracing the fact that you come from a damn strong lineage of African American people and Africans that fought to make you be where you are today. That's blackness.
I would agree. Iman, what's your word on that?
Embracing is the key word. Embracing. Like Lee said, some people may not want to be uncomfortable being black or being loud and proud about being black. It does come at a cost. I've been written up a few times off of my blackness, but that's another story. But it's all about embracing it. Embrace who you are and accept your blackness, embrace your blackness. So yeah, the big key is embracing it.
we embrace who we are, accept who we are, and I think that there's a level of, and you said at least, love and service to our people, right? Like again, I don't mind the outward expression of Blackness. I just don't want it to be trendy, because who I am is not a hashtag. You feel me? Like,
it's a job.
I don't come from hashtags, man. I come from a people who have gone through a lot, who have had a very, very crazy ass history, right? But we divine people. I truly believe that. We are divine people. So we trying to diminish this thing into a very trendy, like, I just hate it. I'm gonna be honest with you. I hate that part of the culture. Like, no, I'm not. White people don't wear their ancestors on their shirts. I know people get mad at me on this one. I know.
I've seen George Washington on people's shirts and Abraham Lincoln. They love Ronald Reagan.
See people on
and
money.
Lord
That's
knows
people on money.
Donald Trump. I've seen cowboy cutouts.
My point is, it's inward. It's inward. I think both of your points, Lise and Iman, y'all basically said it's inward. How you treat each other, how we see each other, how we hold each other accountable, but mostly it's an inward work. Blackness is who you are, but if you don't have a knowledge of yourself, then you got to make sure that you go to a credible source to understand that history. Because no baby is born and say, oh yeah, I love being Black. They have to be given a context and something to hold on to, some knowledge from somewhere, from somebody that's going to help to empower them about who they are. That's what Black babies got to go through. And if the parents don't have that, then somebody else got to provide that. Somebody else got to provide.
Perfect example. Didn't know he was Black or didn't realize he was Black until I think like middle school or something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Discrimination because his hair was all bushy and curly. So you have.
But see, here's the thing. Because how many white people have you said I didn't realize I was white? They don't say that.
Yeah, you don't get pressed for being white. That's why you don't get slack for being white.
They don't say that because they don't need to say that. They just we have to go through this whole thing like I didn't realize my Blackness until like they woke up and they like, okay, this is who I am, so I'm gonna go through the world like this. But we gotta go through like this initiation and orientation.
Because it's hard, and there's a level of things that you need to know going through life as a Black person that white people never have to explain to their children, that you're going to walk in a space and somebody's going to say you shouldn't be here. White person has never had to have that conversation with their children ever.
Right. And that's the difference. All right, we're gonna pause on that note. We're gonna take a quick pause. When we come forward, folks, let's talk about the Queen and her relationship to Black history. Where will the history put her? Because she has a very complicated legacy. We all know that. So we're going to be checking in with historian and educator and scholar, Brother Michael Imhotep, to give us some insight on how we should look at the British monarch then and now. Stay with us. That conversation is coming up next. Join us right in our online culture crew and stay with us. You're tuned into The Culture here on the Black Star Network. We'll be right back.
Can you believe the nerve of these Republicans? They only want to block progress for our community. They talk about cutting Medicare and Social Security. They played politics with veterans' health care. They voted against the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act and funding for our HBCUs, and against lowering prescription drug costs for our seniors. These Republicans keep trying hard to stand in the way, but President Biden, Vice President Harris, and Democrats won't let them. They are delivering for us. The Democratic National Committee is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds. as an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol.
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
When we invest in ourselves, our glow, our vision, our vibe, we all shine. Together, we are black beyond measure.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
When we invest in ourselves, we're investing in what's next for all of us. Growing, creating, making moves that move us all forward. Together, we are black beyond measure.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. Now, we've been having a number of conversations as we talked about Queen Elizabeth II, who passed away last week at the age of 96, and kind of going through her complicated legacy, going through the history of the monarch, has forced us to ask some very uncomfortable questions, and most importantly, has forced the world to look at the British monarchy as whether it's still necessary, whether it's racist, whether it's truly something that should be revered and respected. And so we've been having these discussions because it's a part of the culture. And so we wanted to continue this discussion today. As I mentioned earlier today, the Queen's body is officially in England, will lie in state from Wednesday to Friday. Her funeral will be Monday. And this is a 10-day funeral, national mourning for the United Kingdom for their queen. But we wanted to bring in historian and scholar, Brother Michael Imhotep, to talk to us a little bit about the Queen's relationship to Africa and to Black people, and how Black history, or how history will see the Queen. We're also going to be joined by our culture crew members, Lise Winnie and Iman Heath. Brother Michael, thank you again, brother, for joining us. Always good to have you, dear brother. How are you this afternoon?
Oh, I'm all right, Farajii. How you doing, brother? Thanks.
I'm staying black, brother Michael.
Yes. I understand that. I understand that.
Look, let's talk a little bit about this Queen Elizabeth II. People have been looking, now that her life is over, people are asking the question, we're seeing all types of debates about how history is going to view the Queen, especially in her relationship to Black people, Black Africans, to African nations, to Black people in this part of the world. What would you say? What is the right view or the proper way for us to look at this complicated legacy of Queen Elizabeth II?
Well, I think it's one that cannot be separated from colonialism and the oppression of African people on the continent of Africa, in the Caribbean. You also have India as well. India was a colony of Great Britain also. So there have been a number of articles that have been written dealing with this. One of them is a good one from CNN. Cloud of colonialism hangs over Queen Elizabeth II, dealing with her relationship over Queen Elizabeth's legacy in Africa. And it deals with Kenya. We know that Kenya was a colony of Great Britain, and you're going to have the Mau Mau Rebellion of 1952, 1956 that starts basically soon after she becomes queen in 1952, after her father, King George VI, dies. And you're going to have 150,000 Kenyans put into internment camps, concentration camps. Estimates are that it was a total of about 1.5 million who are going to be confined to their homes and have to have movement passes, things like this. But they inflicted torture on them, brutality, castration on African men in Kenya during the Mau Mau Rebellion, raping of African women. A lot of people. So I've read a number of different articles dealing with this. Okay. And when we look at it from the perspective of white people in England, the majority of them see her as the monarch of 70 years, someone who was constant, someone who was a rock, regardless of wars going on and things like this. The monarch was always a foundation, always a constant. Okay. Right. Other people who came from countries that were colonized by Great Britain, a lot of them don't see it that way. A lot of them see her as part of that whole machinery, that whole British Empire that colonized 100 years ago, colonized 1/5 of the world population. And then when she became queen in 1952, about a little more than 25% of the world population was under British rule. It was a little more than 700 million people. I read that. Yeah, but now that's at a time when the population of the world was about 2.5 billion. 700 million people were under British rule. So I have a couple of graphics here that I think would help. And I did this on my show, the African History Network show. I want to put this, I guess I put it in the chat for you to see this. Yeah. If your team could bring this up. Okay. This is a map of the world, but I just posted it here. I just posted the link. If they could bring this up on the screen. This is a map of the world, but it shows the nations that declared their independence from Great Britain. And it's one thing to read it, and we're going to focus on the African nations. Okay, so Great Britain gets a lot of these African nations from the Berlin Conference of 1884, 1885, when these 14 European nations they meet in Berlin, Germany. They carve up Africa into colonies. And Great Britain is going to be one of the countries that gets the most. Great Britain and Portugal, things like this. Okay, but Great Britain gets a lot. Can we zoom in? Can you zoom in on that?
Yeah, we want to see if we can do. There we go. Keenan.
Yeah. Should be able to.
Brother Michael taking us to school right now. I'm feeling this.
So if we look at this map here, right? This is a list of the countries that have gained independence from the United Kingdom. All right. And there are other maps out there, but those maps show the flags of the nations. This one actually shows the names of the nations. Okay. So over to the left, we know the United States, 1776. That's the Declaration of, and that's the during the American Revolutionary War, which is 1775 to 1783. So they fought for their freedom, but kept us enslaved. All right. Canada, 1931. You go to Jamaica, 1962. Now, what's interesting about Jamaica is that Jamaica was first colonized by the Spanish. It was conquered by Christopher Columbus in 1494 on one of Columbus's 4 voyages. But Great Britain, they go to war with Spain in 1655, and they hijack Jamaica from Spain. Okay, and we're going to see this happen. We're going to see if we just go back in history for a minute. These European nations that we see, France, Germany, Italy, England, these nations are going to start out as kingdoms formed by what are called barbarians or Germanic people. The Anglos, the Saxons, the Jutes, the Lombards, the Picts, the Franks, the Alans, the Vandals, the Visigoths. These Europeans have been fighting and killing each other for hundreds of years. Okay. Then they organize themselves into kingdoms, then organize themselves into nations. And then when these nations come out of the Dark Ages, going to the Renaissance age in about the 14th century, the teachings that the African Moors took into Europe in 711 AD are coming from ancient Africa, are going to bring Europe out of the Dark Ages. Then they start exploring and they start conquering other people's land, especially these Caribbean nations. And Christopher Columbus really helps the transatlantic slave trade to expand. He conquers the Bahamas, Puerto Rico, Cuba, Honduras, Panama, Jamaica. And then as these other European nations get involved in the transatlantic slave trade, because Spain was the second one involved in the transatlantic slave trade. Portugal was the first one in 1441. Okay, and if you look at a map, Spain and Portugal are right next to each other, and Spain and Portugal are right above Morocco. So the African Moors are going from Morocco into what was called the Iberian Peninsula, today known as Spain and Portugal. And, you know, they fight against the Vandals and Visigoths and conquer them and conquer portions of Spain and go throughout Europe. But what you're going to see is you're going to see these Europeans fighting and killing each other over these new lands that they're conquering. And this is what causes the Berlin Conference to happen, because they said, look, Africa is large enough for us to carve it up in the colonies. We don't have to keep fighting and killing each other over Africa, because they've been doing that for hundreds of years. Okay, so if we look at so you got Jamaica, you got the Bahamas, 1973, they declare independence. Now Antigua and Barbuda, they declared their independence 1981. They're talking about becoming a republic and removing the King Charles III now as the head of state. Okay, but if we go over to, and then you got Trinidad, Tobago, you got Barbados, Grenada, a lot of these places that people, especially Europeans, like to go on vacation, these were conquered by Europeans, especially Christopher Columbus, but also the British. Well, if we go look at Africa, okay, you look at these, is one thing to read it, is one thing to read the names, there's another thing to see it on the map. All these nations were conquered by Great Britain, and they were colonies. You got Gambia. These are the years they declared their independence, and most of these nations Great Britain got from the Berlin Conference of 1884 and 1885. Gambia, 1965, declared their independence. Sierra Leone, 1961. We know Ghana, 1957, Kwame Nkrumah, right? And Dr. King went to Ghana for the celebration, and he went every year on the anniversary of the celebration as well. Dr. King went to Ghana for this. Nigeria, 1960. Botswana, 1966. South Africa, 1931. Lesotho, which is an enclave of South Africa. Lesotho is a country within South Africa. They declared their independence 1966. Swaziland, 1968. Zimbabwe, 1980. Malawi, 1964. Tanzania, 1961. Kenya, 1963. Sudan, 1956. Egypt, 1922. Okay, so if you just go from left to right across this map, these are all nations that were colonies of Great Britain. Okay, Australia, okay, Pakistan. And because of the partition of India in 1947, this is what splits Pakistan from India. Pakistan.
Let me just put a pause because I know we got to take another pause. But
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you good. You good. Because I think that and some people are checking in and looking at this map, and some folks are saying like understanding like, okay, how we get that far back, because some of these things happened before the queen was even born in some cases, right?
Exactly. Right.
But I think that it's important that you in 30 seconds so give us a context in terms of why is understanding like all of these relationships, all of these changes, and why is this important to understand where the queen stood on Black and African issues?
Right.
Why is knowing this level of history important?
Right. So first of all, I think it's important to note, based upon their constitution and the role of the monarch, they cannot speak out on political issues. They don't take political positions. However, the monarchy and that's I don't know when that went into effect, but that's what it is currently, and it's been like that for the past few decades. But they definitely benefit from this, and they definitely benefit from the treachery, from the colonialism, from a history of slavery, and England being involved in slavery from 1562 to 1834, when they officially abolished slavery. Now, they paid 46,000 British slave owners reparations, but didn't pay reparations to the 800,000 Africans that they freed. Okay, this is in British history, right? So when you talk to like MSNBC, they were in Kingston, Jamaica this past weekend on Sunday, and they interviewed the head of the Universal Negro Improvement Association. They interviewed a brother who's a Rastafarian. These people who are the descendants of those who were colonized by Great Britain, they don't make a big distinction between one colonizer and another colonizer. They see them all together. And I totally understand that because Great Britain made billions, if not trillions of dollars off of enslaving and colonizing people, okay? And extracting the mineral wealth from those nations. So these nations so the cries of reparations are becoming even louder, and they should, from these nations. Barbados, who declared their independence, who became a republic, formed as a republic, already declared their independence, but formed as a republic November 2021, and named Rihanna as a national hero. So when you go read articles like this, like the one from the New York Times dealing with, there's a really good one from the New York Times that just came out on Friday. In Africa, the Queen's death renews a debate about the legacy of the British Empire.
I saw that.
Yeah, these people whose relatives were killed, like Professor Uju Anya from Carnegie Mellon University, who was born in Nigeria, and her family, she had family members killed during the Nigerian Civil War, and we know that the Great Britain was involved in this. They don't make a distinction. Some of them are happy that she's dead and wish some others will go along with them. Okay. What is important, I think this is an important opportunity, number one, for the real history to be taught, because more and more articles are being written about the involvement of Great Britain and colonialism and the wealth that Great Britain built from enslaving and torturing people and taking people's lands. Number one. Number two, I think we have to push for reparations now, especially from Great Britain. And it's an international movement. I think we have to do this now more so than ever before. And some people may say, well, we want reparations from the United States. I agree with that. But the 13 colonies that became the United States started out as British colonies. That was under the control from Great Britain. They were involved in slavery here in this land before the U.S. even came into existence.
Hey, Brother Michael, listen, I want to put you on pause, because I know when we come back, we're going to continue this conversation. Okay. We're going to get I certainly want to bring in my online culture crew. We're going to bring Lisa and Iman. I'm loving everything you're putting out there. I think it makes so much sense for us to have a historical context, but then more importantly, to understand the relationships. And look, people are checking in, and I think. And Robert Redricks, you put this out there, Robert. This is the first time I'm hearing from you, so I welcome you to the show. Robert, you said something I think that a lot of people probably feeling, and they may not know how to say it, but you said, I never really studied or knew the background of the British colonies, and I'm 54 years old, shaking my head. Robert, that's why you come to the Black Star Network and the culture.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because you learn something.
Exactly.
And I mean, this ain't racism.
No,
this ain't racism. This is history. This is actual fact. This can be, and you know what I'm saying? And I think, and I appreciate you, Robert, because you putting your vulnerability out there. But we do need to help to make the connections, because in modern 2022, in our culture is so like mishmash. There's such a melting pot of facts and fiction. It's hard for people to differentiate between the two. And I think it's important. That's why it's important. That's why I loved having you on and other voices on, because to give us a distinction between what is actual history, what is opinion, what is facts, what are lies. This is the stuff that we need, and this is why it's important. Folks, stay with us. We're going to continue to check in with Brother Michael Imhotep, host of African Heritage News Network. And of course, he's an educated scholar. We got our culture crew, Lise Winnie, Iman Heath, and certainly I got you. So make sure y'all stay in and post your comments on our YouTube page or on our Facebook page, and let's continue the conversation as we talk about the Black struggle and the Queen Elizabeth II. That's happening right here on the culture on the Black Star Network. We'll be right back.
When we invest in ourselves, our glow, our vision, our vibe, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
When we invest in ourselves, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
All right, folks, welcome back to the second hour of the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in. And we've been having just a dynamic conversation talking about the Black struggle and the Queen Elizabeth II. As, of course, she passed away last week. There's a national mourning happening in the United Kingdom. Her body is in England today, where people are able to visit her and to see her body lying in state over the next few days. And then Monday will be her official funeral that will be taking place. 10 days of mourning for the Queen after 70 years of being of service to the United Kingdom. But that service does not come without being under great scrutiny. And today we're continuing the conversations about how history is going to regard this Queen, and more importantly, how the Black struggle has seen the Queen as it relates to this relationship, to the British relationship to the Commonwealth and to the places that the British had control over And now with King Charles, people are asking the question, and I think, Karen, you said it in the chat, and I think it's an excellent point that you made. You said the Queen had 70 years to right the wrongs, and they were left uncorrected. Charles has only 23 years before, but we'll see if he uses these 23 years now to turn the tide on what the empire, what the monarchy has done and will do over these next few years. Now, I want to bring in my culture crew member, Lee Swinney, Iman Heath, back into the discussion as we've been chatting with Brother Michael Imhotep, who is the founder of the African History Network. Make sure y'all checking his podcast, his show out at the AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. He's an historian, he's an educator, he's a scholar, and he's one of our great voices here on the culture. And he's also can be heard on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Brother Michael, let's talk a little bit about this, because you brought up a great point, and I want to bring Lisa in. And I know Lisa and Iman were in the back. They were just, I know Iman eating it up. She rocking and rolling. She just, you know what I mean, off the love, off of the history. She loved it. But talk to us about this reparation piece, because you're right, Brother Michael. A lot of people are saying America needs to give up on the money, but we can't have a conversation about global reparations without looking at the British monarch. We just can't. And so I'm wondering, with King Charles being at the helm, do you think that this is going to happen? You think they're going to right some wrongs here? I mean, I think the monarch made some apologies years ago, and on a couple of moments, I think then back in 2006, they apologized for torture and slavery of a couple of the islands in the Caribbean. But do you think there's going to be a turning of the tide here at this point?
Well, I want to stress this, that King Charles III does not handle political affairs. He does not handle the government. He is a symbol, and they have their government is Parliament.
Right.
That's like our house, their House of Representatives and U.S. Senate. Okay. And they just got a new prime minister as well. So that prime minister is like our president. So, but there is influence. So for instance, Queen Elizabeth II had meetings with members of Parliament every week. Okay. Private meetings, not public meetings, private meetings. And there is, what's going to happen is you're having more talk now from Caribbean nations, for instance. Like there's an article from Reuters.com, Charles' succession stirs Caribbean calls for reparations, removal of monarch as head of state. Okay, so they would, the reparations would come from Parliament, so they had to put pressure on that form of government. But what's happening is, because of more talk about Caribbean nations, is causing the real history to come out. And so let me give you a quick example. Back in 2015, I talked about this on my show, because the day she died, Thursday, September 8th, I did a 3-hour broadcast on the African History Network. So if people go to my website, theafricanhistorynetwork.com, we have it right on the homepage. You can watch it. In 2015, then Prime Minister David Cameron of Britain was planning a trip to Jamaica. Okay. And this was one of their former colonies. The Jamaicans were demanding, one, an official apology for reparations. Two, an official apology for slavery. Two, they wanted reparations. Right. They didn't want to talk. David Cameron basically said, that was a long time ago. Let's be friends now and let's move forward. And one of the tricks that they try to play is that Great Britain did abolish slavery in 1834. But that was after like 272 years. They got involved in slavery in 1562 with Sir John Hawkins, the good ship Jesus. They were involved in slavery for about 272 years. Then they paid reparations to British slave owners, about 19.9 million pounds. I don't know what that translates to in dollars, but they just finished paying off. They had to take out a loan to pay that to 46,000 British slave owners. They just finished paying off the loan in 2015. The 800,000 Africans that were freed in 1834, they didn't give them any reparations. So for you to then say, well, we ended the brutal slave trade. Well, you were the ones that started it with Britain. It's like if I set a house on fire and then I call the fire department and the fire department comes and puts it out and the news cameras show up and I jump in front of the news cameras and say, I saw the whole thing. I'm the one that called the fire department and then try to take credit. No, you're the one that started it and then started the British involvement. Now, the transatlantic slave trade started with Portuguese. So they're trying to play a shell game with us, with those Africans, and say, oh, well, we finally ended the British slave trade, and they say we did it before the U.S. Well, hell, that's after you made billions of dollars off of it, and then you still had colonies. So a lot of the Caribbean nations are continuing to move forward. Jamaica, I think they're going to file a lawsuit to file for reparations as well. But African people in this country, African Americans, we need to really pay attention to this, and we need to go after Great Britain as well, because the United States started out as what? British colonies, and you had slavery in all 13 of those colonies at one point in time as well. So we really need to pay attention to this. When it comes to getting reparations from the United States, I'm all for that. It's a different strategy, understanding the U.S. Constitution, understanding laws, because we need to learn how to make legal arguments for reparations. Unfortunately, I hate to break people's hearts, but a lot of these arguments for reparations we're making in the United States are not legal arguments. And they're not rooted in the Constitution. And if somehow they do pass, they're going to be overturned in court because we don't understand law and don't understand history.
At least when we listening to Brother Michael talking about this on this level, it sounds like we need to have a different conversation. I mean, Black folks in this country, we need to kind of be retaught on some things, right? Because somewhere along the line, and I'm not having this conversation just because I want to be like, oh, I told you so. I told you the queen is this or queen is that. But somewhere along the line, we didn't. Some history is being missing. It's missing. We're not connecting the dots here. And I'm wondering, will history, learning the true history of the monarchy and its involvement in everything from slavery to colonization and all of it, do you think that it will make any cultural shift for Black folks? And putting an us understanding, because I see a lot of Black folks, still say, hey, man, the queen is a good person, not understanding the bigger picture. What's your take?
Well, I think that we always can have more knowledge. I don't think having more knowledge has ever hurt anyone. But I think that we do need to have a nuanced conversation. I don't think people saying that it's okay for you to have your views on the queen is necessarily a bad thing if that's what you want to believe. But I think we do need to have the conversations about what it actually means with having the British monarch and why it even still exists. I'm one of those people, honestly, that is like, well, they're just figureheads. You have the prime ministers is making like, what is the point? Basically, it's just socialism for white people, because most of the money comes from taxes and of course the amount of wealth that they've amassed as a family. So it doesn't really make a lot of sense to someone who's in the US. And I think when you look at what's happened around the world, yes, we do need to have a conversation about slavery, the transatlantic slave trade, and how the British Crown actually had a big part in that. And then of course with the Wimbush scandal in 2018, and Theresa May actually did come out and apologize for that, and they gave them some money, but I think only a very small percentage of people actually received that money, because basically they brought those citizens from the Caribbean and some from India and Pakistan to help them after the war to build up the country with the promise that they would be able to become citizens there, and then they kind of like pulled the rug from underneath of them. And so we've seen this happen throughout history. My biggest issue is why now? Because the queen has been ruling for 70 years and like we're just realizing all of these things now. So I'm like, that 2018 wasn't even that long ago. Like, why weren't we having these conversations then? Like, we're just starting to have these conversations now. And I think we do have to have them in a more respectful manner. I mean, we've seen with the Irish in Ireland, they were saying, you know, ding dong, the queen is dead, and all. Like, we're seeing this all over the place, and I don't think that it's wrong that people have their own opinions. I think we do need to have nuanced conversations about the time to bring this up, because this is someone's mother and grandmother and auntie and all of those things. So I think it's a way to have this conversation in a nuanced way that will get stuff done. But I don't know if we're quite having that conversation just yet.
Lise, not Lise, Iman, what's your take on that? I mean, you know, these, and to Lise's point, that is true. Like, we should have probably had these discussions a long time ago. But you know what? I'm a true believer that everything happens in its divine timing, right? Like, you know, the fact that we're now having these conversations, and I think part of it is just simply because we didn't know how. There's so many other things that were happening in the world at that time in 2018, 2019, 2020, hell, 2015. Our minds was all over the place. So what's your take on all of this?
So my question, like Lee said, is just why now? The best example that popped in my head was, imagine your mother, you ask her for some fruit snacks, right? And she says you can't have and you can't get any. But then once she goes away to work, you go ahead, sneak in that cabinet, you get your fruit snacks. So it's like, now that our overseer is gone, let's go run for freedom. That's the best way I can explain it. But it's like, why now? I'm great that it was mentioned that, you know, here in America, we aren't making legal arguments for reparations. I'm sure a lot of us think that just because we mention it or we gripe about how we've had to endure so much for so long, that should be enough, or that the behavior was unethical, that should be enough. I'm glad to hear that, hey, we got to do a little bit more research and go back to the books and actually make a legit argument. To go after Britain to get our reparations, my question is, how do we start? Where do we put the footwork in? Let's get the ball rolling now. Black social media, Black Twitter and TikTok, the things I've seen, and like Lee said, it should be a respectful thing. She is still a human. She was still somebody's parent, blah, blah, blah. But I think her passing is bringing Black people, Black culture, even our Caribbean brothers and sisters on a one team. We're starting to become on one accord. Like, hey, even though I'm across the water here, we're still Black. It's still, at the end of the day, we're all rooted in the same thing. I think it starts to show and expose us that we are the same people. We just got to different stops. We're the same exact people. So I think this is going to be a better outcome for the culture as far as us as Black people, not seeing each other as separate or as opposition. Just because you have a Jamaican accent and I have an American accent, I'm not as Black or you're not as Black. Like, we can take all that funny stuff out of it. The lines, I think, are becoming less blurred, especially when we learn the history of it. What we just learned just now, and so for some people that may have not known that, they can now share it with their relatives or share it with their friends that may not have agreed with their opinion. I think we're on the right track. I think this, like you said, Farajii, this is a divine moment, and I think this is going to push the culture forward as far as Black people.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. And Brother Michael, I mean, I want to bring you in to answer that question of, you know, we're having these conversations now, but we could have had them 4 years ago. We could have had them 5 or even 10 years ago. What stopped us from being in that place? Or is it just because, to Iman's point, we're starting to come, like, all of these things that are happening are creating the winds of change, where Black folks are starting to see, like, you know what? We really are one people, regardless of the landmass that we may be on. We are all part of one struggle.
Right.
And you know what? I think that's a divine, you know, interruption. I think that could be part of why we're having these conversations. And I don't mind it. Like I say, if it's about timing for us to come together, we sometimes, in order for unity to happen, some other things have to happen. And I'm just
to happen for us to get the push to want to come together.
Yeah.
So what happens is when you have like huge events like this, and a ton of articles written, and it deals with history. It starts bringing out different aspects of that history. In 2021, when you had the 100th commemoration of the Tulsa Race Massacre, right? Then information started coming out about the Creek Indians owning African slaves, and how Tulsa, Oklahoma was founded by Creek Indians around 1834, who got pushed off their land in Southeast United States because of the Indian Removal Act of 1830. And you started hearing about the Black Freedmen Indian Treaties of 1866, where those Africans who were owned by the Choctaw, Chickasaw, Creek, Cherokee, and Seminole Indians got land, and they were in Oklahoma. So a lot of the early African-American landowners in Tulsa got land from those Indian treaties. Okay. So more information about the Tulsa Race Massacre started coming out because there was so much, there was national attention on it, tons of articles being written. So different aspects of that history started coming out. Well, when you have an international figure like Queen Elizabeth II, numerous articles were written. And for that first day that she passed away, there was not a lot of talk about British colonialism and the British involvement in slavery. But like in mainstream media, there was not a whole lot of talk. But you had people on social media, you had people of African descent on social media pushing that issue. And then that second day on Friday, you started having those articles being written to deal with another aspect of her life, and her life is historical and her life is tied to history. You started having articles in mainstream, New York Times, Washington Post, USA Today, CNN being written, and you started hearing from Africans in these different nations that were colonized by Great Britain. You started hearing from people whose family members were killed by the British, okay, during their fights for independence, like in Kenya or in Nigeria. So now is caused that that dynamic to shift, okay, and you're going to see more of that as well, because this is international, and more of this history. Now I'm seeing articles written about the colonization of India. Okay, there's an article from CNN dealing with this. So this is going to continue. All this real history is coming out, and what this does is, and see what the monarchy has done. They've done a good marketing campaign, right? Because they market the glamour, the majesty, the gold carriage, the 30 horses pulling the gold carriage, the regalia, the uniforms, Buckingham Palace, Kensington Palace. They market this magic, but they don't deal with the history of the colonization, slavery, and torture that generated the billions of dollars to pay for all of what you see. Okay, so they've done a good marketing campaign with this also. And lastly, this also ties into a lot of the children's stories that we were told here in this country, Cinderella and Snow White and King Midas and things like this. And when you research a lot of these stories that we tell our children, a lot of these children's stories, they originate in England, because this was an English colony. A lot of those stories originate in England, and they had a more violent nature to them. The violent nature was toned down to be told to children. Okay, so you got to research. You got to research a lot of these stories you tell out, Rapunzel and things like this, and Prince Charming, all this stuff. That stuff comes from England, and so then you wonder why. Okay, so why do some African Americans, why are they mesmerized by the Queen and stuff like that? Well, you taught it to them when they were children. That's why.
Hey, look, Brother Michael. Man, oh man, woo.
My question, I guess, still is, because we've always known that England had a part in a lot of the atrocities around the world. It's not that we didn't, because the Queen will not be ever held to account for any of those things, because she's gone. So now this does fall down to Charles, or King Charles III. I don't know if because I don't know if it was Kate and William who actually was in it was in one of the Caribbean islands earlier. I think it was in Jamaica earlier this year, and they were pushing for reparations. If we, because my fear is the same things that's going to happen. We're going to talk about it, and then it's going to go away. It tends to be the pattern, especially here in the U.S. I'm not so sure about around the world, but here in the U.S., we think about it for a minute, and then it kind of goes away because it's not on the forefront.
Yep.
Right. Let me just ask a question. When you said they were pushing for reparations, who was the they you were referring to?
So the Jamaicans. There was an activist team. I
want to make a clarification.
Yes.
Because Kate and Harry or whoever was, they were not pushing for
William. Yeah. No.
I want to make a clear distinction. Okay.
No, it was Jamaican activists.
The Jamaicans have been pushing for reparations continuously. When November 2021, when Barbados declared they were becoming a republic, then Prince Charles was there for the ceremony, and he read an official statement, and he talked about the abhorrent atrocities of slavery. Okay, now he did not give an apology for slavery. He did recognize the abhorrent atrocities of slavery, but that's as far as they'll go, and that's as far as Parliament will go also. So they got to be pushed farther. I don't mean Parliament Funkadelic, George Clinton, for those. Okay, I'm talking about one nation under a groove. I'm talking about Parliament in England. So they have to be pushed. Okay, but see, yeah, this is but this fight continues. But African people around the world have to unite. Okay, African people, those that were in those former colonies, and also the U.S., because this was a colony of Great Britain as well. We were colonized by them also, and some of us still have a colonized mindset. We have to unite to force reparations.
Do you think that's? Yeah, I'm sorry. Do you think that's why you see a lot of the countries like Nigeria? They say they have a conflicted view of the Queen because she did do some of the decolonization that we've seen around the world. But yet she is attached to the crown, which did all of these horrible things. Is that why we're seeing them there's such a reserve on the heads of these countries to actually come out and say and be forceful with this language that they're using when talking about the British crown?
So it depends upon who you talk to in the country. If you talk to President Mubarak of Nigeria, yeah, he's going to be reserved, and he's going to talk about how great the Queen was and things like this. You talk to Africans in Nigeria whose family members were killed because of the British Empire. They're not going to be so kind. And yes, decolonization happened under Queen Elizabeth, but it wasn't because of Queen Elizabeth that decolonization happened. It's because those nations took up arms and fought against Great Britain, or they declared their independence. It wasn't because of Queen Elizabeth that Ghana got its freedom, or because Nigeria got its freedom, or things like this. So we have to be clear. So part of her legacy is there have been different articles written that deal with how her legacy is complicated because decolonization did happen under her, but decolonization did not happen because of her. It just happened on her watch. Okay, these nations declared their independence. These African nations, and other nations declared their independence from Great Britain, but it wasn't because of her.
Let me just pause this thing right here because we're gonna have to take another break. But Brother Michael, you have been highly insightful. I want to bring in just a couple of quotes from our culture crew, online culture crew, because folks have been chatting about all of this as we've been hearing from you, and I've been hearing from our wonderful culture crew members. Janelle, you checked in and you said this is what hems us up. Other nations know more about our history than we do, and we have the nerve to perpetuate the myth of exceptionalism. For example, so-called FBA versus immigrants. Yep. You don't like my music. You checked in. Good to hear from you. You say growing up in North Ireland, we used the Queens to get up the noses of the nationalists. I always thought monarchy was silly, though. Wow. RJ McKenzie, thank you for checking in. You said Britain needs to give my Jamaican brothers and sisters their reparations now. They started it. They should fix it. How about that? Truth is power. You checked in and said the 13 colonies were put in place to push the movement of the charter that was given from the crown. Everybody paid reparations to the crown. That's how they got their power. Where is our cut? Where's our cut we built? Yeah, absolutely. And McCall, you checked in and says apologies for the colonization of African nations, Caribbean nations is not sufficient. Hand over the money due to African nations. The U.S. needs to hand over money to African Americans as well. Real Brooklyn, you checked in and said the Queen is not to blame. The monarchy is basically there for constitutional duties. It has no formal role in the head of nation. In a nutshell, they are just there for theatrics. Brother Michael. Now, right, exactly. Now.
Yeah.
My hope is
not when the transatlantic slave trade started, but yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Now it's a different thing, right?
Right.
But
right. They still benefit from the colonization. They still benefit from the accumulated wealth. The monarchy is worth about $28 billion. Queen Elizabeth had a net worth of $500 million. Okay, so
check.
And some of it comes from taxes too, right?
So it is true they're figureheads, but look at what they're holding up. You got to understand this history, the totality of it. Okay.
But they get taxes too, right? Like the British people, and they pay taxes and they get some of that tax money too to live off of, right?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. But their role is true. Their role is not a political role, but once again, you have to look at this, the totality, not just Queen Elizabeth, like on the day of her death. You got to look at the totality of this history of Great Britain.
And I think that's the real challenge that's facing not just Black people in America, not just African nations, but the whole world. We are in a space now that when you're talking about high profile leaders like Queen Elizabeth II, and I said this yesterday, you have to look at the big picture. A person who's been in this role for 70 years, they are the institution. You know what I mean? They are the institution. And so we do have to take a step back and look at the bigger picture. And more importantly, we have to make sure that we have a factual, historical look. So that way our context and our understanding and our opinions and judgment is still rooted in something that can be deemed as credible. And I think that's the big thing. Brother Michael, you got the final word.
Yeah. This article that you have up right here, this is from CNN. Cloud of colonialism hangs over Queen Elizabeth's legacy in Africa. If you scroll down, if those in the control room, if you scroll down to the picture with Kwame Nkrumah. Now that's where the picture that they're showing now, she's in, I think it's Nigeria. She's in, but scroll down to the picture where she's with Kwame Nkrumah, and it talks about tragic period. Okay. And then scroll down right below that. It says in South Africa, one opposition party, the Economic Freedom Fighters, the EFF, was unequivocal in what they said about Queen Elizabeth. They said, "We do not mourn the death of Elizabeth because to us, her death is a reminder of a very tragic period in this country and African history," end quote. "Our interaction with Britain has been one of pain, death, and dispossession, and of the dehumanization of the African people." Okay. And they have a link there where you can read their full statement on their Twitter page. But I know we're pressed for time, but I just want to talk quickly about my online classes.
Absolutely, brother. Okay. Talk to us real quick.
All right. So everybody visit our website, theafricanhistorynetwork.com, theafricanhistorynetwork.com. I teach online history classes. We have one that just started up this past Saturday, 8-week online course, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa. Understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. So we get deep into this history. That class is basically going to meet on Thursdays. As soon as you register for it, you can go watch the class we just did Saturday. We do the sessions live. All the sessions are archived and recorded, and y'all can scroll down the page. All the sessions are archived and recorded. You can go back and watch it anytime. Today, keep scrolling. Yep. Okay, so right here we have the information for the class. Today, Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I have class number 1 from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968 starting up. And if you scroll down a little more, you'll see the class, the second class, from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968. This class, we start in 1803 with the Louisiana Purchase and the Haitian Revolution, because those two events are related. And we go through history chronologically. We see what leads up to the Civil War taking place. We study Reconstruction, 1865, 1877, Jim Crow era, Civil Rights Movement, Black Power Movement, Great Migration, World War I, World War II, to see what happened to us after slavery ended, how we got to where we are today, to understand where we need to go from here. Okay, so you can register for the classes, and we have a bundle pack as well. TheAfricanHistoryNetwork.com, TheAfricanHistoryNetwork.com. So we'll see you in class. Thanks,
Brother Michael Imhotep, who is an educator. He's a scholar, he's a historian, and he's also the host of the African History Network podcast. Make sure y'all check him out at theAfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Brother Michael, always a pleasure to have you on. Thank you so much, brother.
Thanks,
thank
brother.
You for
appreciate
everything you do, bro. Truly
all right,
appreciate
thank you, brother. All right, thanks,
absolutely.
Peace.
Peace. All right, folks, we're going to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's talk about the controversy around The Little Mermaid. Folks, there are so many different elements to this story, and we're going to break it down with our culture crew, and of course, invite you to join us in the conversation. So stay tuned. That discussion is coming up next here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol.
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear. When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
When we invest in ourselves, we're investing in what's next for all of us. Growing, creating, making moves that move us all forward. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Can you believe the nerve of these Republicans? They only want to block progress for our community. They talk about cutting Medicare and Social Security. They played politics with veterans' health care. They voted against the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act and funding for our HBCUs, and against lowering prescription drug costs for our seniors. These Republicans keep trying hard to stand in the way, but President Biden, Vice President Harris, and Democrats won't let them. They are delivering for us. The Democratic National Committee is responsible for the content of this advertising.
When we invest in ourselves, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in. Man, oh man, what a great conversation we just had with Brother Michael Imhotep from the African Heritage Network, African History Network. So big shout out to my big brother for joining us for that conversation about the Queen and the Black struggle. All right, we want to shift gears because another cultural piece that I thought necessary for us to discuss. And I saved this story because I wanted to hear directly from my Tuesday Culture crew, Lee Swinney and Iman Heath, because I know they got a lot to say on this one, which is something that's deep, folks, super deep, The Little Mermaid. Let's bring my sisters back into the conversation. Lise, Iman, look at Lise's face. She's like, yo, I've been waiting all day for this conversation. Yo, and first and foremost, let me tell you something. And I'm asking this question because I think it's important for the culture. Should we even get excited that Disney has casted a Black woman, a young Black sister, Halle Bailey, folks? Let me just, because there's so many different elements to this story. Her name is Halle Bailey of Chloe and Halle fame. They are R&B. She's an R&B singer, right? And she looks exactly like Ariel.
Yeah, she's absolutely stunning. Her and her sister both. They're both very, very stunning, beautiful women. I will say that. And I think that she embodies in that trailer she embodies what we perceive Ariel, who is a fictional character.
Iman. First thing, I'm surprised Iman is so quiet right now. Iman. Iman.
Ooh, the white people are mad. The white folk are mad about a fictional character being a different color. But some of these same people push for representation and all lives matter and everyone is included, blah, 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 blah. But you're mad that a fictional, scripted, drawn-up character is the opposite color of what you're used to. Come on now. Out of all the princesses that are already the color that you are, because we're going to get the second, I'll say third, because Brandy was Cinderella. We're getting our third princess out of the 18 that y'all got. Now that we getting one, it's a problem. We get another one. It's a problem.
But it's hilarious to me. I've seen memes that saying not my heritage. She was a mermaid. If she was real, she would be ugly and green. Her skin would be translucent. The story was from the Dutch, though. It came from a Dutch story back in the 1800s. He didn't even describe what Ariel looked like. If you actually read the children's books, which Mr. Imhotep is actually right, all of the stories that we know today have been changed to be better for children because they're all horrible stories if you read them. But in the story, he never actually described what she looked like. The only thing we know is that Ariel had blue eyes, and they didn't even call her Ariel. She was just the Little Mermaid. She didn't even have a name. So if we're being honest, Disney made Ariel a redhead because they didn't want her to resemble the mermaid movie, The Splash, that had already come out in the 80s. They wanted to distinguish between the two. And so they made Ariel a redhead because it matched, it went well, complimented the fact that she had a green fin. That is where Ariel came from. So the story that Disney told is a completely different story. So she can be whatever race we want her to be. And if you don't like this, fine. Black people are going to see this movie and it's going to be amazing, just like with Black Panther. Stay home, you okay, not your heritage unless you have flounder. I'm like, you're going to be okay. You're gonna be fine.
And hold on. And number 5. Out of the point that she just made. Black people can have blue eyes, just in case anybody wanted to say, oh, black people have blue eyes. Baby, we are the God gene. I can make any flavor, any color child, blonde hair, brown skin, light skin, red hair. We got all that in us. So please, don't come. Please, save the blue eyes. Save it. Save it. I'm tired of Farajii. When I said
yes. Okay. I want to play the trailer for those who may not have seen it yet. I want to play this trailer Here is the trailer that premiered a couple of weeks ago. It was shown at Disney's D23 Expo this past weekend. And this is the trailer of the upcoming live action of The Little Mermaid. Check this out. Now look,
he better hit them notes. He better hit them notes.
Now look, I'm not taking this doesn't take from any part of what Haley Bailey is all about, right? This speech, has nothing to do with her. But for us to have for there to be so much hoopla about a fictional cartoon, right? Like this is a cartoon. And I'm wondering if we really should see it as a quote unquote a win for Black folks, because at the end of the day, folks, it's a children's movie, right? And I know, and there are a couple of things that have been happening. One is that there has been a trend of TikTok videos and other like IG videos of parents showing this trailer to little Black girls, and little Black girls getting all excited. Oh my God. And people's like, that's why representation matters. To be a mermaid?
That's why I was like, she's a fish, though. I mean, I think that it does.
Like, let's keep it real, right? Like when we originally saw,
I think it's about feeling included, making the children feel like they're a part of the group. I think that's the part of her being.
I can see the only pushback on that, Iman, is like with Black Panther, and people try to say, just like Black Panther, it's different. Because Black Panther, there's a whole world, you know what I mean? And of course, there's no such thing as Black Panther, but Wakanda, the whole thing, it just felt like it was just
before, being colonized. But go ahead.
Right. And look, when Black Panther was originally created, Stan Lee said it was because he saw this emerging consciousness. This came out of the Black Power movement. Like this idea of a Black superhero. So there's some things that's connected to history in that storytelling. But in this, and you mind, Lise, you just broke it down. Like this is Little Mermaid. And I appreciate that they did have a young Black woman to play the part. But I don't know if it's like a representation matters issue.
I think that it's both to me. And I think because it shows that a Black woman is taking on a lead role in Hollywood, which is not always available to us, especially outside of the scheme of being Black. Because typically a lot of Black women are just casted in these roles of being Black, the struggle, slave. And so this is actually taking a Black woman, putting her in a mythical world and showing that, hey, we can be magical too. So I like that part of it. But I think when we start looking at it as wins and losses for the whole Black community, I don't know if we should necessarily do that. I think that this is a win for Haley, who will now be able to go off and do other amazing things. And I think the trickle down effect will be that other Black girls will look at her and say, hey, I can be mythical too. I can go for those roles that are typically made for white women. So I think that's where the representation comes in, not necessarily seeing a fish, like a half fish woman, but I think that that's where we as Black women, because I had a best friend, we're still very much in contact to this day in elementary school. Her favorite character, a princess, was Ariel. And she said, as an adult in her 30s, seeing Ariel as a Black girl, and she has locks too, made her feel empowered as a Black grown woman, that her favorite character looked like her. So I think that it can have symbolism for other people and it can make you feel really good. But I feel like showing that Halle Bailey, I did it myself, can actually show Black women you can go for whatever role you want and you can excel in it. And I think that's where this will be amazing for the Black community.
All right, very quickly, I want to share what Haley actually said in regards to the backlash she's been getting. And then Iman, I want to get your take because I know you got to hop off. But she said this. Let's put quote number 2, Keenan, on the screen, where she says, when she talks about the racist remarks on the casting, she said it's important to have a strong support system around you. It's hard to carry the weight of the world on your own. It was an inspiring and beautiful thing to hear my grandparents' words of encouragement telling me, you don't understand what this is doing for us, for our community, for all the little Black and brown girls who are going to see themselves in you. What Ariel, being a person of color, would have done for me, how that would have changed my confidence, my belief in myself, everything. Things that seem so small to everyone else, it is so big to us. Again, I respect her. But Iman, I feel like we're taking a situation and we making it so big. And I'm talking about for Black folks. I'm not talking about white people. I'm talking about for Black folks, like this is a folks, to me, this is still, she's a fish.
She is a fish. She talks to a fish and a crab. And they sing one hell of a song. What's the song, Under the Sea? That's my favorite song. But that's my song. I hope they tear it up in that movie. But I will say it's not necessarily, I won't say a win because like what's the competition? However, this reminds me of when everyone was saying how Hillary being possibly running up to be the first female president is breaking the glass ceiling. I think her being able to cast this role that was originally pictured as a white fish, white woman, it's a breaking the glass ceiling type of situation. Like Lee said, hey, you can go for this role. You can go at this, go after that. We're not, from what I've seen as far as reading and what critics have had to say, we're not that far off from that whole paper brown bag test. We're not too far from that. Colorism still exists when it comes to casting as far as Black women. But like Lee said, we don't always want to be that either loud ghetto Black woman, the single mother who has to struggle in the hood and she finally makes it out. But to be able to finally cast something as, I guess, gentle and soft as a mermaid, even though it's fictional, but to be able to cast that as a Black woman, on top of that, let's not forget the locks. She don't have bundles in her hair, y'all. She has a I'm not saying traditionally Black style, but it's in our culture. Locks that originates from our culture. So I think it's a great representation. Farajii, unfortunately, you may not connect with it, and that's okay.
I get it. Look, I'm gonna take her to see it. I'm gonna take her to see it. But let me just throw out something else that Willie Frazier, one of our culture crew members, he pointed out. He said he asked the question, "Who's the prince?"
He is white, so the prince
is
is
a
white.
British actor by the name of Jonah Howard King.
Yeah.
So this could be something that this is gonna be another
And look,
thing.
this ain't about racism. This ain't about racism. I want to make this very clear.
Racism, though, Farajii, it's going to be about you're whitewashing the Black culture. If they are together as Black and white, and they're gonna this is gonna stir up even more. Mm-hmm.
It's an interracial situation. I can't. I mean, look, like I ain't trying to look at. This is a cartoon, you know what I'm saying? Like it's an interracial, but let me tell you one thing I've learned about movie making, one thing I learned about Hollywood. Nothing is intentional that you see on screen. I mean, it's by coincidence that when you see something on screen. If it has gone all the way to this part of the process, this is all intentional. You see what I'm saying? And so when we're talking about that representation, then we also got to talk about when you're a little black girl, again, this is not a shade on Haley. That's not a shade on anybody. But I'm saying if the messaging is about representation, then what is the messaging that you're going to say when your little black girl sees that and say, oh, she fell in love with a white male? Because they didn't cast Prince Eric as a black man.
Eric is a black man, but
they didn't, but here's the thing, because we also have to realize that Haley Bailey got the role because she was the best act. We have got to stop that. She was the best actress that came out in
They were
audition.
thinking about Zendaya at first. They were thinking about Zendaya, but then you got to think about somebody who actually can sing.
Right, but I think Zendaya can sing. But I think that this guy was the best Eric that came. And so I'm going to say that maybe he was the best Eric for that particular role. And I think when it comes to seeing a person who fell in love with somebody that she truly cared about, I don't think there's a problem with that. Like, if you have a little girl in your life or your daughter finds someone who treats her amazing and she can find love beyond just her race, what is the problem with that?
Hey, there's no problem because that's love. That's who you choose to be. But I'm just saying it gets fuzzy when you start to try to be political, but then non-political. You know what I'm saying? In the same situation, that's when it gets fuzzy. So you're making a big statement, but then at the same time, like, again, you didn't cast a Latino. It could have been a Latino dude. That could have. I mean, how many Latino brothers named Eric? Right? You know what I mean? It could have been anybody else. They got the brother David Diggs, he's playing Sebastian. David, very, very talented black man. I've seen him in a couple of projects. He could have played Eric. It's like you want to do half. Say it again.
But he wanted to be Sebastian. That was the role that he wanted. So I think we've got to stop that too, because maybe, like I said, maybe he was just the best person for that particular role. Gotcha. And this movie isn't about necessarily, first of all, it's fiction. It's not real, but it's not. If you really read the book, it's very horrific. Like every time she would walk, she would feel like she was walking on knives. Like she was going to stab Eric at the end. Like it's a whole thing. Like it's a horrible story. So the fact that we've been able to even adapt this for children is fascinating to me. But this is not. I think this is more about showing the independence and the curiosity of a young girl wanting more than what her life was given to her. And how many young girls can identify with that? Feeling like they live in the sea because they live in an area of poverty where they feel like they cannot get out. And seeing somebody that actually looked beyond that she was able to get out of that particular situation. So I think that's what this story is about.
Come through with the perspective, Lee. Come through with the perspective. Hey.
Least took from the sea to poverty. Y'all feel me? Like, they in a sea of poverty and destruction, structural racism, and as a result of that, they getting out of the sea. They gonna find a way to get out. And if it's love, Farajii got there, it's love. Hey, look, Iman, you gotta hop off. I got you on that. What you got something else you want to add to this before you hop off?
I'll throw this out here for everybody to think about. If they would have casted Ursula, a heavy-set purple octopus, as a black woman, we'd have been pissed. We'd have been hot. And let's be realistic. If they would have decided to get a black heavy-set woman to play a purple octopus, we'd have been mad as hell. So it's both sides to the spectrum. I see one of our watchers said, you can't win them all, and that's very true. So just think about that part, black folk. So we will take this as a win or a high, I guess. I'm taking it as a win. Breaking glass ceiling. That's all I got.
There you go. Iman Heath, activist, entrepreneur. Thank you, Iman, for your time. We truly appreciate and love you. All right. Appreciate you, Iman. Man, it's my, at least with all due love and respect, I hear what you're saying. I really do hear what you're saying. I think that, it makes me rethink of when Pocahontas came out, right? There was Now, of course, there is a real Pocahontas in history, folks. And the story is very, very interesting. And what Disney has done and what they always do, they start off with a fact, a historical story, and then they massage it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what they do, right? To fit a certain type of, end result. They want to tell a certain type of story with historical figures and all of those things. So that's the creative license of Hollywood, right? Right. But I think that for this, we just need to keep it in this proper context. And again, I mean, it is what it is. It's just that I don't know if you're going to make a big statement in one part of the story and then not make statements throughout the whole story, if the message or that statement is truly going to resonate when it comes to this. It may. People are already upset. People are already talking about not seeing it. And, some white people. And then you got some black folks who are just like, hey, I'm going to take my daughter. And I'm wondering, come May of 2023, Lise, are we going to see some level of little girls walking, looking like little mermaids, everybody looking like the same type of energy you saw with Black Panther?
You're going to see grown women walking out here with mermaid tails. What are you talking about? I mean, this is just something that...
They're going to be like, I'm trying to get out the sea of poverty as well, brother.
Right. You're going to see everybody. I think you're going to see Black women are going to support this. Black people are going to support this. I think this is going to be a movement. It's definitely going to be a movement. But like, I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying, though, when it comes to Disney, because with the whole thing with Pocahontas was like 10. And so in real life, and to show exactly what happened, that's not what happened with Pocahontas at all in that situation. So I see what you're saying, where they tend to put these white men in these situations of this savior figure, and they always cast them in this really great light. But I think in this particular situation with The Little Mermaid, I think we're looking way too far into it. And I think that it takes away from Haley when we start to dissect every little piece.
That's what I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. I think it's like we're putting so much into it that we're making it like it's easy if it's just be like, okay, the black face in a traditional white space, a white character. We've seen it all the time, but we attaching so many other things to it, Lisa, that it's like, this representation situation is getting a little far out there. Like, this is a mermaid, y'all. What representation?
I might have red hair next week. I can't guarantee whether or not I will or won't. I'm just saying.
So now mermaids don't feel like they get a say? Like, what?
Yeah.
Yo, that's messed up, mermaids. Y'all treat mermaids like this, man. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, the Mermaid Delegation Association about to come out in full force.
I'm about to have some mermaid and fish. Somebody watch. They're gonna have a bunch of fishes across my Twitter page. Like, I didn't appreciate what you said about us on your show, Farajii. Like, man, get out of here with that madness, man. No, real talk. Like it's a movie. It's a movie. You got a great team of folks. And really, and here's the other thing about it very quickly. I hope the movie lives up to the hype.
That's my fear. That's my fear. Because I've seen a lot of these live action Disney movies have been horrible. I saw Pinocchio was bad and Tom Hanks was in that. Cinderella was bad. My concern is, please make this movie good. That's it.
I hope it lives up to the hype.
That's all. Just make it good.
Just come out with some new Pixars and some new traditional animation films, because this joint, I hope it lives up to the hype. Because if it's terrible, then all this is going to be for nothing. Haley ain't going to want to be connected to the project. She's going to be like, man, damn. First weekend, terrible. I hope
but we're going to support it. But we're going to stick beside
I'm going to support her. My daughter wants to see it. Of course, Nero wants to see it. Everybody. It's all good for me. But I saw Lion King. Y'all remember Lion King? And y'all went in on Lion King, the live action.
I hated that.
You know what I'm saying? And literally, I don't understand the whole thing. Real quick, I don't understand why folks hated on it. It's the exact same script.
It was. It was, but it was longer. Like the running scene was like 30 minutes. I was like, you could have cut that out. Like it was just not the same magic.
Y'all get no mad at Beyonce. Lions.
You know, I ain't never
assemble. Whatever she said. I don't know.
I ain't never get mad at the queen. I've always see that's the only queen I recognize is Beyonce. That's it.
Man, that's crazy. Absolutely crazy. All right, folks, look, we got to take a quick pause. When we come back, let's talk about trends, posts, and doing the most. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
When we invest in ourselves, we all shine. Together, we are black beyond measure.
Can you believe the nerve of these Republicans? They only want to block progress for our community. They talk about cutting Medicare and Social Security. They played politics with veterans' health care. They voted against the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act and funding for our HBCUs, and against lowering prescription drug costs for our seniors. These Republicans keep trying hard to stand in the way, but President Biden, Vice President Harris, and Democrats won't let them. They are delivering for us. The Democratic National Committee is responsible for the content of this advertising.
When we invest in ourselves, our glow, our vision, our vibe, we all shine. Together, we are black beyond measure.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind $100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
All right, folks, let's talk about what's trending right now. Let's bring back my sister, Lise, to talk about some of the trending topics right now. One is something I thought this was dope, Lise, and I'm sure that you appreciate it as well. In New York City, if you're in New York, you probably have seen this. If you're around the New York City, New Jersey area, Connecticut, you probably have seen this, where they now have a memorial called Say Their Names, which is a memorial honoring Black people killed by racism, which debuted in New York City. Over 20 New Yorkers are included in Say Their Names, including Amadou Diallo, Eric Garner, and the 10 victims of May's mass shooting in Buffalo. Now, this is a display tour that continues this month in an area of Central Park, and that for decades was one of America's largest Black settlements. And it is a moving memorial organized nationally by the San Diego African American Museum of Fine Arts. It's a grassroots effort to remember more than 200 African Americans who have died as a result of racism and injustice over 2 centuries. Powerful, powerful display, so that way people don't forget about those who have lost their lives unjustly. What's your take on that, Lise?
I think it's a good thing. I think that why not do this so that people will remember, because we have a fast moving news cycle and people tend to forget. Like when something happens and they're on to the next. So when you do things like this, I think it does remind people, and hopefully it will still push people towards change and making things better and actually trying to make the world a better place, especially the US when it comes to racism.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I'm very excited. I hope it comes out here to California. Would love to check it out. But folks, if you haven't had a chance, make sure y'all check it out. It's called Say Their Names. All right, and as we wrap up the show, hey, look, she's going to be on the show tomorrow. I couldn't get her today, Lise, but you know, your partner in crime, Nira, my life partner, my baby mother, Her birthday is today. So I told her, I was like, look, I'm gonna give you a shout out today, Nira. Don't worry about it. Happy birthday. If you haven't had a chance to check out Nira, all that she does, check her out at iCallHerQueen.com. iCallHerQueen.com. Her birthday, you can find her on Instagram, on Facebook. She's always looking for folks to connect with. But Nira is turning. When she come on the show tomorrow, I'm gonna just let her talk about what she done and all the good stuff. But of course,
and
she's a fantastic mother. Say it again.
Season 2 is her podcast, and season 2 is coming out as well.
She's working on season 3 right now too.
Oh, season 3, so, okay.
Yeah, we're about to kick off season 3 tonight. We're going out, but big shout out to her for all of the things that she's doing. She does a lot, folks. If y'all don't know, Nira does a lot, from everything from education to art therapy to helping people get in college. I mean, she's working in a lot of spaces, and trust and believe this year is going to be phenomenal. You sometimes, how it is, Lise, like some years of your birthday, you just like, okay, growth, reflection. Then other years are like transformative years that take you to a whole different level. I truly believe this is the year it's going to be that type of year for Nira. So happy birthday, dear. Looking forward to spending some time too. And just know here at The Culture, we love and appreciate you and look forward to seeing you tomorrow to talk about all the things that you got going and working on and all that good stuff. So
and tomorrow you're gonna do a montage for her. You're gonna do it up. You're gonna do it real big. Keenan.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what Keenan and I had planned. I said, no, we got that. No, because, matter of fact, I'm glad you brought that up because Keenan and I were just talking earlier today. And we were like, this montage was going to be phenomenal. Phenomenal.
Yeah, I knew it.
All right, Lisa, I appreciate your time today here on the show.
I knew it. See, you're welcome.
Make me feel... It's just like women. You be like, you trying to think of everything to do for the birthday, you know what I mean? The next thing you know. Like this morning I brought her some like some of her favorite dessert, favorite pastries for breakfast and stuff. And she hit me with one thing. She was like, I got a donuts, gluten-free. Boom. I'm like, yeah, boom. She like the first thing she said was, oh, this is nice. So did you get a croissant? I didn't know you I knew you wasn't done. Fellas, y'all ever done that? Like you try to think of all of the things, and then next thing you know, your significant other just hit you with something sideways. But did you think of this? And they like, and you like, no, I wasn't thinking.
You were supposed to know. See, you were supposed to know in your mind.
You're supposed to know everything all the time that's going on in your head.
I know she dropped them hints about them croissants. You were supposed to know.
No, dog. No, she didn't. But we were, I'm getting better. I'm getting better, folks. I haven't watched it. When she come on the show tomorrow, she'll be like, and those croissants. I asked them for croissants after. So, all right. Big shout out to her. Happy birthday, dear. Look forward to spending time with you. All right, folks, that's going to do it for me. Lise, thank you so much. Lise, host of Millennials Anonymous podcast. Lise, y'all got any new seasons, any upcoming updates? Look at that.
Yes, so for season 5 is out now. Just dropped the new episode yesterday, which is VHS famous. So I go in and talk about Aries Spears and that whole situation because another video came out. So we talked about that, and of course politics, about what's going on with Trump and the special master, all that. So that's the episode that just dropped yesterday. And we have a student loan special that's out as well.
There it is right there. Lise Winnie, always doing something great. Please keep up the great work, and God willing, we'll reconnect on next week for another exciting edition of The Culture with you and Iman. Yes.
Yeah. Thanks. Thank you for having me.
I appreciate you. All right, folks, that's going to do it for us. Make sure that y'all continue to do the great work of supporting us here at Black Star Network. Go to our website at blackstarnetwork.com, where you can support us financially, continue to share the content and all of the good things that are happening. here at Black Star Network. As I mentioned to you at the top of the show, Brother Roland's book is out right now, White Fear. Make sure that you get your copy of the book. Yep, there it is on all platforms where books are sold. Make sure you order your copy as he talks about the browning of America and how it's making white people lose their minds. White Fear is now out, and continue to show support for us on all the things that we do here on this side. Stay tuned. Up next is RMU, our Roland Martin Unfiltered. He said tonight he's going to be talking to Stacey Abrams. Yes. So make sure y'all tune in at 6 o'clock Eastern Standard Time for that conversation and a whole lot more. That's going to do it for me. As always, never be afraid to challenge what's wrong. Stand for what's right while being yourself in the process. I appreciate all of our new watchers today. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Y'all have made the cultures yesterday. I think we about hit the 10,000 views mark. So big shout out to all of you for making the culture so popular. Thank you. Thank you. We don't do this work lightly. We don't take this work lightly. I put a lot of time into it. We try to put as much effort into it and talking about the conversations that are important to you. So your support, your views, your likes, your shares mean everything to me. And also make sure y'all hit me up on my social media at Farajii, the real Farajii on Instagram, Farajii on Twitter, and Farajii Muhammad on Facebook. I love to connect with folks. I will follow back if I can follow back. I need a lot of folks on Instagram. I need a lot of folks on Twitter. So make sure y'all do your due diligence and connect with me. But again, thank you so much for tuning in. And God willing, we'll talk tomorrow for another exciting edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Talk to you soon, folks. Peace.